haven't slept. It's been 3 days. How's everybody feeling today? You guys are not awake either. It's phenomenal. My name is Devin Pike. Thank you very much for coming out to Dallas Fan Days. It is, I love you guys too. It's great to be here. It's really great to be here. We've got a fantastic slate all throughout the weekend. We hope you have a fantastic time. I just have one little piece of housekeeping. If you're going to do photos during the panel, please don't hold your phone up above your head the entire time, because nobody wants to watch the panel through your phone, okay? Can we do that? Also, a fantastic round of applause to all the volunteers who make this weekend possible. They've given their time and their energy to make sure you guys are going to have a phenomenal time this weekend. So if you see an orange shirt or a red shirt, thank them for their sacrifice. Wait, that sounds a little weird, I'm gonna let it go. Our next guest is one of my favorite actors working. He has worked with some of the most amazing people. You guys know him from Stranger Things, Full Metal Jacket, Streamers. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal opportunity. Please give a massive Dallas welcome, Mr. Matthew Modine. How are you, man?
I'm doing very well. Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Sound off like you got a pair.
Woo!
Yes, sir. There you go.
First off, once again, thank you very much for spending the weekend with us here in Dallas. It's a phenomenal opportunity to get to know you and say how much we appreciate your work over the last, good God, the first time I actually saw your stuff was in, well, interesting way to put it, was Birdie, one of my absolute favorite films of all time. And just a phenomenal tour de force. And then we saw you in so many different styles of roles in your first 10 or so films, working with the greatest directors working in Hollywood. So I wanted to start with, as a student of Stella Adler and going through working your way up the Hollywood food chain, as it was, what was your approach to choosing roles at that point as you're making your bones in Hollywood?
That's a good question. First of all, thank you all for coming today. It's a real honor to be here in Las Colinas, because this is where I did one of my first important films at the studios at Las Colinas with director Robert Altman. It was a play that the director Mike Nichols had directed on Broadway by the playwright David Rabe, called Streamers, and won the Best Actor Award at the Venice Film Festival, and that really launched my career. So it's really wonderful to come back to Texas and be in this area where it all began. Stella Adler was an extraordinary teacher. I'm going to tell you something that's personal, because there are people that we meet in our life that change our lives, right? When I was 11 years old and started flirting with the idea of being an actor, I'm the youngest of 7 children, and when you're the youngest of 7 children, how many people have children in the audience? It's a young audience. So with your first child, when the child gets sick, you run them to the hospital because you think, oh my God, they're going to die. And then the second child comes, remember we took them to the hospital and the doctor said, just give them a baby aspirin or something, put a Band-Aid on it. The third child, it'll be all right. 4th child, 5th child, 6th child, 7th child, you say, don't worry, he'll stop bleeding. So they don't pay that much attention to you. But it's a wonderful opportunity because you get to learn from the mistakes of your brothers and sisters. You get. I'm sorry, I just noticed you. How am I doing? Good, okay. So yeah, the child will stop bleeding. And so I had an aunt, and she was married to my father's brother, my Uncle Wilder, who flew B-17s in the Second World War. So in the movie Memphis Belle I did, I wore his dress uniform. Thank you very much. Wow. I wore my uncle's dress uniform in that film. But Alice, she didn't have children. And when I was born, she kind of adopted me. And so she was the person in my life who said, what did you do today? And how did that make you feel? And she was concerned about my well-being and curious about what went on in my head. And whereas my mother and father didn't have time and my brothers and sisters didn't care. So she made me think that I mattered. And when I told her when I was 11 years old I wanted to be an actor, she gave me a book by a man named Konstantin Stanislavski, which was something I couldn't understand. It was beyond anything I could. I couldn't even pronounce Konstantin Stanislavski's name. I tried to study that book about acting. The book is called An Actor Prepares. I go back, my father, we moved to Utah. We're living in Utah, and there was a movie came out. I'm sorry, this is kind of a meandering story, but stay with me. There was a movie that came out called Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman, and it was the first time they pivoted the camera from white settlers being attacked by savage Indians to Native Americans being attacked by savage settlers. The camera pivoted, and I was going to school with a lot of Navajo from Utah, and I was filled with shame at seeing those white settlers kill and murder the ponies and the children and the women and the warriors to take this land away from them. And it filled me with shame. But one of the things that there was an actor named Chief Dan Horse, and Chief Dan Horse spoke to Dustin Hoffman, and the Native Americans called themselves human beings. So from that point in my life, all I wanted to be was a human being. I have my my aunt's book, Konstantin Stanislavski's An Actor Prepares. I decide I'm going to move to New York City to study acting. And when I get to New York City, I realize that this is a profession that I don't know anything about. That I'd hear the waiters in the restaurant where I was a chef talking about Eugene O'Neill and Henrik Ibsen and Tennessee Williams and all these amazing, great playwrights. And I didn't know anything about those people. And I was incredibly intimidated. So I asked one of the waiters, where could I learn about those playwrights? And he said, you should go to Stella Adler. She'd like you. So I go in to meet Stella Adler in New York City to audition to get into her acting conservatory. And when I walked in the room, she had her back to me. And she turned around and she looked at me. And she said, if you've come here for me to teach you how to be a movie star, you should turn around and leave right now. I don't teach that. If I'm lucky, I'll teach you to be a human being. I started crying because that boy in Utah that wanted to be a human being just walked into a room where a person was going to teach him how to be a human being. And this woman was a student of Konstantin Stanislavski's. So my grandmother, or my aunt, Aunt Alice, unknowingly planted the seed when I was 11 years old with a book by Konstantin Stanislavski, and now here I was in a room with a woman that was one of his students.
Cool. Very cool.
How old were you when you first started classes with Stella?
I was just 19 years old. 19 years old, yeah.
And then, if you're not familiar, the Stella Adler School has so many distinguished graduates over through the years. When you
Robert De Niro and Marlon Brando are two of them.
Yeah.
Melanie
They're
Griffith.
flashes in the pan, they'll never last. Did you start off on stage work just to try to make your bones at that point, or were you constantly, I mean, obviously you're going on auditions so many times over the course of your weeks and months in New York. Did you see yourself thinking you were going to go towards stage, or did you know that film was going to be where you wanted to go?
That's all I wanted to do was stage work because that's all I knew. I mean, I knew movies because of my father's drive-in theaters, and that was very exciting. But Stella Adler had a real prejudice against movies, that the real actors don't work in movies and television shows. And I think that that was a prejudice of hers because there is something that's real, which is a screen presence, a stage presence, or what, telegenic. And John, we don't have to look further than John Kennedy, because that was the first telegenic president, right? He had such a presence. And that's a gift that we don't understand. That you can look at your school pictures with the entire classroom, and there's certain people that pop out from those class pictures, and we don't know why it is those people pop, but they do, and that's just a gift. So you have to be thankful for that gift. But yeah, I wanted to work in theater, and yeah, I just wanted to work in theater.
In your early roles, going from...
Am I answering the questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're asking me a question and I tell you a story about my aunt.
You are the dream panelist. Trust me, you're doing great. You might have future dreams too. In your early roles, where we're looking at Birdie and Joker and your roles in Vision Quest and Streamers, was there one performance where you sat there and said, okay, if I'm walking down 42nd and a bus hits me, I'm fine because I have this to put on my mantle, this role, this can of film. Was there one of those roles where you looked at it and said, this is why I got it, this is why I did all this is why I stayed with Stella, this is why I'm an actor?
I certainly felt that way with this first film, because Robert Altman was a legend, you know, so to be cast in, and it was a play. We were filming a play, so I was fulfilling two great ambitions, working with an amazing Robert Altman and making a movie about this. I did a trilogy of films about Vietnam: Streamers, Birdie, and Full Metal Jacket. And after 3 films of studying and trying to understand